London, a city known for its diversity, its history and its vibrance, is also grappling with a dark undercurrent. Gang crime is on the rise, and at the heart of it all is one gang that stands out among the rest, the Molly Boys. Rumor has it 250 gang members operate amongst 12 gangs in the Walthamstow area, but one gang sits at the top of this pile, the Molly Boys. This gang has established dominance not just in East London but far beyond. Their roots are in Somalia, hence the name Molly Boys, though the gang today is ethnically diverse. Operating mainly in the E10 and E17 postcodes, their control extends across Valentine Road, making it a notorious no-go zone. What sets them apart is their mix of old-school tactics and modern ruthlessness. They still use Nokia phones, avoiding smartphones to stay one step ahead of law enforcement. In fact, they've even been known to monitor police activity, following officers, noting their license plates and using social media to intimidate. In this high-stakes cat-and-mouse game, they've built an enterprise that's both feared and respected. The Molly Boys are not just another gang. They're an organized criminal outfit. It's estimated they rake in £50,000 a week from drug dealing alone, and their influence is felt beyond East London. They run county lines drug operations, stretching as far as Essex and Scotland. What's worse, like many drug-dealing gangs, they exploit children, pulling young recruits into their web of violence and crime. Their weapon of choice? The terrifying zombie knife, a weapon designed solely to harm and easily purchased on the dark web. Despite new legislation aimed at curbing the sale and possession of these knives, the violence continues. Between 2021 and 2022, 78 young people under the age of 25 were killed by knife crime in the UK. Each life lost is a grim reminder of the reality of gang violence. The Molly Boys rose to power after breaking away from another gang, the Boomers, who controlled much of the drug trade in the area during the 90s. The Boomers were originally a Jamaican-based gang, notorious for their grip on East London's drug trade. But as the area changed, so did the gangs. The Boomers faded, replaced by the next generation of criminals, with the Molly Boys at the forefront. As gentrification pushes lower-income families out of London, many of the original gang members have also relocated, but the Molly Boys haven't slowed down. They've absorbed smaller gangs and expanded their territory. They now dominate the borough of Waltham Forest, beefing with rival gangs like Priory Court, Higham Hill, and the remnants of the Boomer Boys. Despite the capture and imprisonment of some of their leaders, like Hamza ul Haq, who was convicted of murder in 2023, the violence continues. The Molly Boys' reign of terror seems unstoppable. With tit-for-tat killings spiraling out of control, innocent bystanders often find themselves caught in the crossfire. One tragic example is the death of 14-year-old Jaden, who was brutally killed by Molly Boys members after being hit by a stolen car and then stabbed 9 times. This senseless violence shook the community, but it wasn't the last. The evolution of gangs in East London is rooted in the migration patterns and economic conditions of the late 20th century. The Boomer Boys, one of the earliest criminal organizations in the area, dominated the drug trade in East London in the 1990s. Their members, mostly of Jamaican descent, operated out of the Demon's Road estate, which was known as a notorious crime hub. Things began to shift when the Somali community in East London grew in the early 2000s. Many Somali immigrants, fleeing civil war and hardship, found themselves in the economically deprived areas of London, including Walthamstow. The rise of the Molly Boys marked a generational shift in the gang landscape. Many of the original Molly Boys came from families who had escaped conflict and violence in Somalia, but they found themselves caught in a new kind of war on the streets of London. This isn't just a UK phenomenon. Somali gangs have made a mark in other countries like Sweden and Canada, controlling drug trade operations with a reputation for brutality. The transnational nature of Somali gang culture adds complexity to understanding their operations. Some of these gang members grew up witnessing unimaginable violence back in their home country, and it's no surprise that this shaped their approach to life and crime here in the UK. Gangs like the Molly Boys prey on vulnerable young people. They lure them into a life of crime by offering them what they lack: money, power, and a sense of belonging. This recruitment process often starts in schools, on the streets, or in local youth clubs. Young teens are promised quick cash and respect, but what they're really signing up for is a life of violence, fear, and ultimately, prison or death. These young people become disposable assets in the eyes of the gang leaders. If they're caught by the police, they face long sentences, while the higher-ups remain protected, far from the front lines. But the psychological and emotional damage is often just as devastating as the physical risk. For every young person lost to gang violence, there's a ripple effect that devastates families and entire communities. Mothers who lose their sons, siblings who lose their brothers, and friends who lose their peers. It's not just the gang members who suffer, it's everyone around them. Drill music has become intertwined with gang culture in the UK. For the Molly Boys, drill isn't just music, it's a way to broadcast their dominance, celebrate their successes, and intimidate their rivals. Tracks by Molly strip artists like Richie have put the gang on the map, both in the music world and on the streets. Many drill artists use their music to boast about real-life crimes, making it hard to separate entertainment from reality. For some young people, this music is aspirational. They see these artists as role models, not realizing the price they're paying for fame. The Metropolitan Police face an uphill battle in their efforts to curb gang violence in London. New legislation has been passed to crack down on weapons like zombie knives, but the gang problem goes far beyond just weapon control. It's about dismantling entire networks of organized crime, disrupting drug lines, and stopping the recruitment of vulnerable youth. The police have launched various initiatives, including youth outreach programs, mentorship schemes, and community engagement efforts. But the fight against gangs like the Molly Boys requires a multifaceted approach. For many young people, gang life may seem glamorous at first, money, status, and power. But the reality is far different. Most of those who get involved in gangs end up either dead or behind bars. The Molly Boys have already claimed countless lives, both those of their victims and their own members, who've either been killed or locked up for life. In this world, there are no winners, only loss. The future of the Molly Boys remains uncertain, but one thing is clear: they are far from being dismantled. With their deep roots in Walthamstow, their expanding reach through county lines, and their ability to adapt to new pressures, the Molly Boys have established themselves as one of London's most resilient criminal organizations. But how long can their dominance last? As police continue their efforts to break down their operations, the Molly Boys have shown they can evolve, switching up tactics, moving members, and absorbing smaller gangs. Law enforcement is constantly challenged to keep up with their ability to recruit new members and maintain control over the streets. However, the landscape is changing in East London. Gentrification is pushing more lower-income families out of the area, forcing gang members to relocate or operate from afar. The demolishment of estates and the rebuilding of communities may weaken the Molly Boys' physical stronghold, but their influence still lingers in neighboring areas and beyond. As long as there's a demand for drugs and a pipeline to exploit vulnerable young people, they will continue to thrive. Some say the Molly Boys' success won't last forever. The increasing pressure from rival gangs and ongoing police operations could eventually fragment their power structure. Infighting and turf wars with other gangs, like the Boomer Boys or Priory Court, could wear them down. Others argue that without substantial change in social and economic opportunities for young people, gangs like the Molly Boys will continue to evolve, recruiting the next generation of members. At the same time, the Molly Boys' reliance on youth to run their operations puts their future at risk. The tragic cycle of young people getting drawn into gangs only to face violence, prison, or death is unsustainable. If authorities can disrupt the flow of new recruits and provide alternatives for young people, the gang's power could diminish over time. But without this intervention, the Molly Boys, or splinter groups born from them, could continue their reign for years to come. For the Molly Boys, the road ahead is filled with uncertainty. The gang may grow, adapt, or fragment, but one thing is certain: as long as systemic issues like poverty, lack of opportunity, and exploitation exist, gangs like the Molly Boys will find ways to survive. Whether they continue to dominate London streets or fade into obscurity will depend on the choices made by the city, its people, and those caught in the web of gang life. The future may still be unwritten, but the consequences are already clear. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to our channel, and we will see you in the next one. Stay safe.